Much like the London Black Cab, the AEC Routemaster took what was otherwise a humble mode of public transport and turned it into a national icon, the big red bus being an immediate symbol of London and Britain, but at the same time was a marvel of simple but sturdy engineering, capable of outliving many of its replacements, and seeing continued use over 60 years after the first examples rolled into service. The Routemaster's tale begins with its pre-war ancestor, the AEC Regent 3 RT, arguably the first of the traditional red London buses, and was the last iteration of the bonnet design, where the once protruding engine bay from the front was gradually integrated into the overall body shell. The RT began production in 1938, but the original order for 338 units was cut back to 150 following the start of World War II in September 1939, the RTs having only entered service in June of that year, but production would continue in 1946, allowing for the strong and practical design to replace the long-neglected tramcars of central London, swinging the balance in favour of regular diesel buses. By the time construction resumed, though, the RT's design was now nearly a decade old, and development of a replacement began in 1947, this new bus requiring increased fuel efficiency to suit the post-war rationing, as well as being easier to build, maintain and operate. The new vehicle was originally conceived by AAM Durant and Colin Curtis, with styling done by Douglas Scott, who based their concept around the aforementioned parameters of efficiency, practicality and ease of use, giving rise to a 64-seat double-decker bus that was 3/4 of a ton lighter than the RT, but could carry 8 additional passengers. Intentions for the new bus were for it to allow replacement of the city's electric trolleybus system, which by 1950 had become extremely careworn after years of wartime neglect, and thus the capacity was increased in order to provide equal carriage to the largest of London's trolleybuses, the British United Traction 6-axle, while also providing greater flexibility and competitive operational costs to its electric counterpart. Now christened the Routemaster, body construction was handed to Park Royal Vehicles, who employed the use of innovative lightweight aluminium panels derived from World War II aircraft production to bypass the post-war steel rationing which had crippled many other car manufacturers, while also pioneering the use of independent front suspension, power steering, a fully automatic gearbox, and power hydraulic braking for a British bus. This would make the Routemaster a nimble machine, while at the same time, the bus would derive from the RT a well-grounded centre of gravity, which meant that if the bus had to take a corner sharply, it wouldn't tip over, with demonstrations on the skid pan revealing that such an oversized vehicle could easily perform full 360-degree spins without any fear of toppling onto its side. Power was originally derived from 3 engines that depended on customer specification: the AEC AV 590 9.6 litre, the AV 690 11.3 litre, and the Leyland 0600 9.8 litre, the output of which was approximately 110 to 130 horsepower, these being supported by a series of 4-speed automatic and semi-automatic gearboxes with air-operated pre-selection. Most importantly, the Routemaster, like the RT, was front-engine, allowing for it to be naturally aspirated through a traditional radiator manifold, removing the fear of overheating if the vehicle was forced to stand still for extended periods in heavy London congestion. This allowed for a fully flat floor that made the Routemaster easily accessible to passengers while providing additional standing space during busy periods, while in place of automatic folding doors, an open rear platform allowed for efficient boarding, with ticket collectors usually stationed on the platform for revenue protection. Initially, 4 prototypes were built and put into service between 1956 and 1958 for acceptance tests, with each vehicle built by a different coach builder, 2 from London Transport's works at Chiswick, 1 from Weyman, and the other from Eastern Coachworks, the Weyman and Eastern Coachworks examples being fitted with the Leyland 0600 9.8 litre engine. The first prototype was displayed at the Earl's Court Motor Show in 1954, and received widespread acclaim for its superb design, while during the same year, the previous RT ended production in anticipation of the Routemaster's introduction, with the new bus giving rise to 7 different variations. The RM, or Routemaster, was the standard design, while the RML, or Routemaster Long, provided an extended wheelbase of 2 feet over the standard. The RMC, or Routemaster Coach, was specified for long-distance journeys under the Green Line brand and included folding doors over the rear platform and slanted 4-lamp headlight clusters, and the RCL, or Routemaster Coach Long, which was a long wheelbase version of the RMC. Beyond the initial 4 variants, there was also the RMF, or Routemaster Front Entry, a standard RM Routemaster, but with folding doors fitted to the front of the passenger area, while the passenger stairwell was situated behind the driver's compartment rather than at the back of the vehicle, these being a unique purchase by the Northern General Transport Company of North East England, who ordered 50 examples. The RMA, or Routemaster Airline, was a specialist 70-mile-an-hour variant built for British European Airways on their transfer service from the West London Air Terminal in Kensington to Heathrow Airport, which also included forward sliding doors and was usually paired with a luggage trailer, with 65 units being built that operated on the London to Heathrow service from 1966 to March 1979, after which newer coach designs replaced them. Finally came the FRM, or Front Routemaster of 1966, a unique rear-engined Routemaster with forward sliding doors that was constructed as a very late attempt to update the Routemaster design, utilizing 60% of the standard RM parts, though more notable was when the bus caught fire due to the fitting of an incorrect flywheel, which saw the machine's forced air heating and ventilation systems removed. However, while the FRM prototype was a very clever design with a well-thought-out engine bay, by the time of its release, the market was now saturated with all manner of rear-engine double-decker bus models, including the Leyland Atlantean and the upcoming Bristol VR, and thus the sole FRM built would be retired to the London Transport Museum. The Routemaster officially entered service with London Transport in February 1956, and quickly took influence over the public transport network in the city, eventually displacing older designs such as the RT and the Leyland Titan. By the 1970s, as the concept of double-decker buses became something of a novelty, the big red London Routemaster could immediately be associated with the eccentricity of the British people, as well as maintaining an old-world charm that would be carried through the following decades, helping to cement its position as the mainstay of London's public transport provision. Therefore, the Routemaster's place in the public consciousness was secured, helped along by its famous appearances in series such as On the Buses, while drivers had nothing but praise for the vehicle's reliability and ease of use, its road manners and handling being not too dissimilar to that of contemporary cars, with power steering and a practical cab layout, meaning that driving the bus wasn't a complex chore. Such was the success of the Routemaster that it would go on to outlive many of its proposed replacements, the most notable being the Daimler fleet line, known as the DMS or Daimler Multistandee, which entered service with London buses in 1971, but immediately faced criticism for its slow boarding times due to the narrow doors and its tendency to overheat as caused by the positioning of the engine at the rear. Unlike the naturally ventilated Routemaster, the DMS could only be cooled through a rear panel, and with the vehicle often sitting for long periods in traffic, no air would reach the power unit and thus cause it to overheat. Such was the failure of the DMS that by 1983 all examples had been removed from service after only 12 years, and due to their poor resale value, most examples would languish at bus depots, known as DMS graveyards, for nearly a decade, by which time the abandoned hulks were so far deteriorated that, in 1990, the graveyards were cleared and a majority of ex-London examples were scrapped. Another attempt to replace the Routemaster came in 1975, when the Metropolitan, as built through a joint venture between Scania and Metro Camel Weyman or MCW, was introduced, this being much more reliable than the DMS, but still failed to garner the same popularity as the Routemaster, with only 164 examples sold to London Transport before they were all withdrawn in 1983. It wasn't until 1978, however, that two designs came to pass that would truly challenge the Routemaster's supremacy, the MCW Metrobus and the Leyland Titan B15, the Metrobus being the successor to the Metropolitan, and saw widespread implementation due to low running costs and a more practical design, while the Titan took design cues from the highly popular Leyland National single-decker bus. In the battle between the Metrobus and the Titan, preference was made for the Titan through political pressure, resulting in major losses for MCW, while the appearance of the new buses saw earlier Routemaster examples either retired or relegated to training duties. Meanwhile, outside the capital, the Routemaster fought against a slew of younger competitors, including the Leyland Atlantean, the Daimler Fleet Line, and the Metrobus, compounded by a general drop in ridership numbers for bus services outside of London that saw widespread reductions for large fleets of vehicles. By the mid-1980s, most non-London Routemasters had either been retired or preserved, while the rise of driver-only operation thanks to front-entry bus designs, where the driver also doubled as the ticket collector, meant that rear-entry Routemasters quickly became non-standard, while in 1979, the AEC company would be shut down by parent firm British Leyland as part of their drastic financial cutbacks. Withdrawals truly began in earnest following the defeat of the Greater London Council in the House of Lords over its subsidised fare scheme, with major service reductions ensuing from September 1982, but Routemaster operations in London were allowed to resume thanks largely to the privatisation of London Transport in 1989, wherein its former realm was divided into 11 different sections that were open to franchises. Of these, 8 sections inherited Routemasters, all of which had previously seen life extension practices implemented in 1987 due to the failure of the DMS to replace the fleet in earnest, while further life extension practices took place in 1992, with all but 2 vehicles being modified as such, which included refreshing the interior and replacing the older AEC engines with new units built by Cummins. Throughout the 1990s and into the early 2000s, removal of the Routemasters was still on the cards, but there appeared to be no viable replacement in store that could match the vehicles for performance, reliability, and practicality. Eventually, amid upcoming health and safety legislation, as well as amendments to the Disability Discrimination Act, it was now imperative for London's Routemasters to be withdrawn to avoid being operated against government policy, with the iconic open rear platform being the main point of contention regarding wheelchair access, as new buses were fitted with hydraulics and low-floor technology. As the Routemaster could not be retrofitted, withdrawals began in August 2003, with Route 15 having its Routemasters replaced by Alexander ALX 400 Dennis Tridents, although the great irony is that the Routemasters would return on the heritage Route 15 between Trafalgar Square and Tower Gateway. In some instances, Routemasters were replaced by the controversial Mercedes-Benz Citaro articulated buses, but the latter proved highly unpopular among bus drivers as their incredible length meant they had difficulty navigating London's narrow streets, compounded further by overheating problems that resulted in several vehicles catching fire, withdrawn Routemasters being reintroduced to cover for Citaros that had broken down. Routemaster retirement continued throughout 2004, with the end coming on December 9, 2005, as the last number 159 to Brixton Garage made its run through streets packed with crowds of well-wishers and fans, bringing an end to 49 years of dedicated operations, the Dennis Trident double-decker now taking up the mantle of London's iconic Big Red Bus. Preservation of the Routemasters, however, has seen hundreds of these vehicles remain on the road all over the world, with 1,280 of the 2,876 vehicles produced known to still be in existence, representing a survival rate of 44%, which is substantially greater than many renowned vintage car designs. Such is the iconic nature of the Routemaster that, in 2012, the new Routemaster was introduced in London to become the latest iconic red bus, its styling cues and overall design having been taken from the timeless original, these vehicles being produced by Wrightbus of Northern Ireland and saw 1,000 units built between 2011 and 2017. In the end, while the Routemaster was designed simply for the purposeful role of a bus, its mixture of practicality, performance, innovative mechanics and design, combined with its unmistakable profile and styling, meant what was originally considered as a practical means of public transport transcended its utilitarian role and is now today the very face of an entire nation that is instantly recognizable.